Here we go. And the pod is going. And 3, 2, 1. And yeah, and let's get started here. Hey, everyone. Star Trek, the original series, The Menagerie, Season 1, Episode 11 and 12 is over and has been since November of 1966. But we're just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. I'm Dave Mader. I'm coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews. We're here streaming live on Facebook. We're joined by, we'll start here in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen with the ever-salty Jody Simpson. How are you doing tonight, Jody?
Not too bad. You got a lot of background noise right now.
Well, you know, when going to our next guest, my father, Ted Mader, who broadcasts from a kitchen that has microwaves and the kitchen sink going and things like that. So, how you doing, Dad?
Mader cooking something.
Yeah, it's not your fault.
It's Jeff's fault.
Jeff's fault. All right,
he had to cook his food.
He's got to get his food. You know, it's hey. You know, if you're hungry, you're hungry. All right, so here we're here to talk about The Menagerie. Every week we're picking an original series episode picked by my dad, where we go back and rewatch it and we talk about it. And this is maybe one of the more famous ones. I think it's the only two-parter in the original series that I can recall. And yeah, it's generally well regarded, this episode. So I'm kind of curious to hear what your thoughts are. Let's go to Jody first. Jody, what do you think about The Menagerie?
This is an episode that didn't need to be two parts. I don't know why it's so well regarded. I don't find it a very interesting episode, really. It's essentially a recap show. They show a lot of clips from the original pilot with Pike. Yeah. Before Shatner got on. So it's a decent episode, but I wouldn't say it's not like, some sort of mind-changing thing or anything like that. It's an okay episode, but I found I got really bored of it.
Okay. Well, let's come back to that. Dad, how do you feel about this particular? Well, it's a two-part episode, but we're here to talk about all the whole thing. And so it's basically one big story.
Yeah. One of the best episodes. We're right up there. It's a good, goes to give a little history of, pre-regular Enterprise back to the original captain and on to the current captain, and a whole story behind these little Talosians.
The Talosians, yes, the very cerebral. So yes, for those who may not know, Star Trek had actually 3 pilots that they created. This was the very first one, and that's what we see in this episode. This courtroom footage that Spock uses, I guess, in his defense during his court martial, because hey, I'm kind of bearing the lead, but he stole the Enterprise and he went to the only planet in the entire galaxy that is forbidden, the only one they'll give you the death penalty for. So
that took almost 30 minutes to do, by the way.
That took almost 30 minutes to do. The behind the scenes, the real world version of this story is that I think they hit a certain part in the first season production. They were like running out of scripts. They couldn't keep up. So Gene Roddenberry is like, well, why don't we just reuse that footage from the original pilot? And he wrote the what he called the envelope, basically the kind of things to put those contents in. All the scenes we have with Commodore Mendez and all the trial and the court martial and everything to do with that. That was all written by Roddenberry in apparently about 4 days, pretty quickly. And I think why it's well regarded. This is just my take on it. I think it's kind of establishing the Star Trek universe. It's giving more backstory, that the Enterprise has more missions in history that we never knew. That Spock has more backstory.
Yes.
In a second, we're going to take a phone call.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of a call right now, so I can't do it. Can you call me tomorrow morning? Yeah, tomorrow.
I'm curious now. Yeah,
might as well.
I'd say it's probably best.
Yes, I will. Okay. Yeah, it's the one that you just called me on. Okay, perfect. Thanks. The world goes on.
The world goes on, of course. Hey, life, that's life.
The world has voicemail, too.
I don't know. I have a couple of outstanding issues that have to be responded to.
It's okay. I'm just giving you shit for fun.
Okay, so Dad, like, how do you feel about, I guess, the original pilot, like not the Menagerie so much, but the Cage, the one that's what we're seeing all this footage here from, with the Telosians, Jeffrey Hunter, who was the first actor to play Christopher Pike, and Leonard Nimoy, who was part of that pilot as well, and tying that all together. Are you glad that they had to shoot a new pilot and we got Captain Kirk, or do you kind of wonder what would have been if Captain Pike had been picked up for the series?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Captain Pike was a good-looking dude. He would have probably done okay. But, the fact is that, we got a Canadian in there, Captain Kirk. Best captain of a starship in all of the Star Trek series by far. It's not even close. Anybody's second. Jane Gainway. My God, how about that Jean-Luc French Picard? Like, there's some real hacks that were captains. Now you got
we know how biased you are. I don't think we need to go through all of them.
What about Cisco?
No. There's only one captain, and there's really two captains, and these are the two.
Watching Pike is like watching a board walk around a stage. It's brutal. Like he can't act.
No,
I'm sorry.
Jody,
he cannot act.
So you're not a fan of the Jeffrey Hunter performance?
Best decision they ever made for Star Trek was to make sure he wasn't in it.
It wasn't even his decision. It wasn't the studio's decision. It was Jeffrey Hunter's decision, and I guess his family.
It was a good decision.
He
had another big star on another show.
Well, that's right.
Right, Dave?
Well, no, he was kind of. Oh, what was that? Where did we lose?
Getting Jeff.
I don't know what happened there. Yeah, well, Jeffrey Hunter, he did this among a number of other pilots he filmed in the 60s. And they asked him to come back for when they redid the pilot, and he said no, he didn't want to do it. They asked him to come back for this episode. He said no. A lot of the people involved in that didn't want any part of this. Because I don't think they thought it would be successful, and a lot of people working on it at the time didn't think it would be successful. But now here we are talking about it 50 something years later. But do you guys? I didn't even know what had happened to. Oh, wait, is that Jeff? Knock knock. Oh, he's had dinner. Your mic's deep, but it's all good. Okay, so we got Jeff in here, and Jeff, we're talking about Jeffrey Hunter and Captain Pike, the original Captain Pike that we see so prominently in this in the Menagerie through the footage that's shown.
Your dad thinks he's an Academy Award winner.
You mean Hannibal?
For
Yeah,
acting, and I believe it's like watching a board walk around.
he's like it's somewhere crossed between Hannibal Lecter and the guy, like I don't know, like a deaf mute. I mean, he doesn't really do anything. He hits a button twice or once.
Well, actually, I thought that was some of his best acting. I was actually talking about the flashbacks through the entire episode that were more or less the demonstration of the superb acting ability he has. Like, I'm not saying the guy can't.
Yeah,
act,
the guy in the
saying he definitely didn't belong in Star Trek, and I'm so glad they didn't make him that.
Right.
Yeah, we're kind of saying that we dodge a bullet because they did have to redo the pilot, and then Jeffrey Hunter turned that down, and then they brought in William Shatner, and that
we wouldn't even be talking about Star Trek if they left him in there. They would have went one season. At least Shatner had some charisma.
Do you know what happened? Does anyone know what happened to Jeffrey Hunter?
No. Do you?
No. Yeah, I only know because I looked it up tonight.
Oh, and what happened to him?
Well, what happened to him was he went off to. No, he died. In the 60s, actually.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Really?
He was in a movie. He was in a movie they were filming over in Italy. Jeff has a really bad connection, I think. There he is. Okay.
He was in a movie in Italy.
He was in a movie. He was filming like a mobster, a Chicago mobster movie over in like Italy or Spain or something. There was a window of a car that was supposed to explode outwards, but it malfunctioned and exploded inwards, and it hit him in the head. And then he had like this like like concussion basically. And so the doctor, he went to the hospital in Los Angeles when he got home, but they sorry,
They couldn't save it.
They couldn't say. Well, no. He actually, what happened? He went home. He passed out a day later, hit his head on a banister, and then he died.
Wow.
Ooh.
That's some.
So maybe it was really like he was in that wheelchair for a while.
He didn't share the same fate as his character Christopher Pike, but it's too bad.
So Pike in the wheelchair isn't played by the same guy, right?
No, it's not.
And that's why they did the makeup and everything. Yeah.
No.
I don't even know if they could do this today because the rules changed around what archive footage you could put into other episodes and things like that. Because you remember with the unions, because in Back to the Future 2, do you remember Marty McFly?
Yeah,
it's George McFly.
They couldn't use Crispin Glover.
Right, but they still used archive footage, and then he sued them. And it was a big thing, and that kind of changed the rules around the actors' unions. But this is before that, so I guess they were like, we have all this footage from a pilot we never used. We have this origin story, and it is. I think what the most interesting thing about this episode is Spock and his motivations, and showing him have this loyalty to this other captain that we don't know really. And that he's willing to not only put his career on the line, but it's the only planet with the death penalty, and he's putting his life on the line.
I'm so glad that Nimoy created the character to be better, because the character that you see in the cage is just, I'm so glad they changed it. Because Spock in the cage is definitely not the Spock we all love.
Is it just me, or does the guy who plays Pike, the young Pike, does he look a lot like Ray Liotta, or what?
Yeah, he's got a little bit of the Ray.
A little bit, yeah. He's got a little bit of Ray Liotta. And I was watching this episode with a new lens of having seen Star Trek Discovery season 2, which I know is all of our favorites.
Your favorite, Jody?
Not mine.
He never even got past the first episode.
I've seen an episode of season 2. I quit about the 6th episode into season 1, I think.
Right, but the episode starts. They arrive at Starbase 11. They say, this Miss Piper, I believe her name is Yeoman Piper, who works for the Commodore. She says, "Why are you here?" And she's like, "What do you mean? Well, you called us." But right away, there's some flirtation going on with Kirk and that lady. I want to know what was going on there with Piper.
It was Kirk.
And then they go, "Nobody called you here." And they, "Well, where's the transmission you said you got?" And Spock said it was, and if he says it, it's good enough. So there's all this confusion. Did this episode need to be 2 parts? Definitely not. They could have tightened this into 1 episode. For sure. Easily. But it has time to move. There's kind of this confusion. It's more like a movie, really. It plays more like a movie.
I think it needed to be 2 episodes because they would have screwed it up if they made it 1 episode. I mean, back then most of the time with Star Trek, everything is like nerve pinch, hit the guy in the face. All right, move on to the next thing.
With Spock in this, every time, you saw him, he was just fucking pinching everybody.
He did. This episode has nerve. This episode definitely has nerve pinches.
2 of them.
2 of them. That's light for 2 hours of Star Trek. That's not meeting the nerve pinch quota that I'm used to in the original series. Every episode, Spock does it to somebody. But for this episode, it's like Dave was saying, it's good. It is Spock's the most interesting part. Kirk is like a lot of captains in Star Trek, following orders and duty and all those tropes. Mm-hmm. I find yet again this episode proves to me that Spock and Kirk really aren't that good of friends.
Well, this is season 1 too.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember?
I don't care.
It's very early.
This is early in their friendship. They haven't even served together that long at this point.
I don't think they're as good of friends as the movies.
I like the young Spock. He's very aggressive.
You like the young Spock. That's what Jody's.
Yes.
Jody's very happy that Spock changed his persona and his performance.
He had like the
he got better as he went on, but the young Spock was interesting. It's different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just when they
different look.
When we first see Captain Pike, right, in that room in the wheelchair, and he's been damaged by the delta rays. like it's tough. Like you feel for you don't even know this guy very well or at all. You know, if you assume you've never seen the original pilot, but they did come back to this in Discovery, and they show. I can even show you the clip if anybody's interested, where they kind of show what did happen to Pike, because he kind of gets like a premonition, a flash forward in that series of what his fate will be, and it's not badly done. It's very interesting. It's one of the more interesting parts about Star Trek Discovery, and there are not many.
That's sad. Anyway,
yeah.
Can anyone explain to me why Talos 4 was off limits for all spaceships and brought the death penalty? What is the reason for that?
Yeah, okay. So the reason for that is what the Telosians tell Pike in this episode, or in the original episode when they first met 13 years before the events of this episode. And it's that their plan was that they were going to get Pike, they were going to get that Lena woman, right? And that they were going to start a whole race of human slaves that they were going to like put in like this rat's maze or something, right? That they would just, the Telosians would just mess with forever. So I don't have a direct correlation about like why the Federation would put such a guideline for that. Like that's obviously a terrible thing, but it seems a little heavy-handed.
Yeah, I just never seemed to set a place like that was banned and brought the death penalty. The one place in the universe.
That's the only thing you can do.
In Next Gen, there was stuff like that, but yeah, the original series, I don't really remember anything like that.
In the Federation, the Federation doesn't have the death penalty, except for like treason, I suppose. But and I don't
except
know.
for that.
Yeah.
Except for that.
Right. And except for Talos 4, which I think still is on the books. That rule is still on the books. They never have retconned that. So
I have a question though on that episode, on the part 2 where they showed a clip from Rigel 7. Now, wasn't the miners in the Muds women? What Rigel were they from?
They were from one of the Rigels. But
yes,
I think it was Rigel 5 or 4.
Yeah,
so
Muds women, right?
Yeah. So there's a Rigel 7 referenced here.
Rigel, they go to Rigel 12 in that episode. So this is
12.
Yeah. And the Rigelians are it's a part of Star Trek universe that hasn't been fully explained, like what the Rigel system is, but lots of different stories have revolved around Rigel. And I guess there's many planets there.
Oh. I guess there must be. Usually there's only one with M class, but that one had obviously more than one with M class.
Yeah, there's quite a few solar systems with more than one planet that is habitable.
I was just wondering how the lithium miners were doing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, hey, they're selling them and living with their Muds women.
If Muds women are still there,
they're still there. If he wants to head back to Rigel. Yeah. Like what do you? Okay, so we've talked about Kirk versus Pike, and maybe the glad thing that way history turned out for the better. Jeff, I know you. I can see that you have the footage there. What did everyone think of the fight between the computer technician and Spock in that little control room when he's trying to control the radio the radio signals up to the Enterprise?
Oh, that was brutal.
I mean, classic terrible choreography. I mean,
it's usually like people grabbing people and pushing them away,
pushing them, throwing them.
Yeah, it's like pushing and throwing, and not like, especially with Spock, I guess, but like not a lot of punching. I don't know. It's such a weird choreographed scene, like all the fights back then. And why did Spock have to do what he did the way he did? Did he have to do this plan? Did he have to fool everybody? Couldn't he even just ask Kirk? Is it because of the, does it check? Does it check what Spock's doing?
It's easier to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
Right. His ultimate goal is to get Pike to Talos 4 so he won't be like confined to the wheelchair. He will be, but in his mind he'll be free. He'll be able to walk around. He'll be as he was, right? Like he'll be able to live his life in some kind of comfort and with, not being confined to a wheelchair, not be able to move or talk or do anything other than blink a light. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Which that becomes a big thing in pop culture. Like the blinking of one light or two lights, yes, 1 for yes, 2 for no. that carries through to a ton of stuff after this. Like, I think it's just picking right up for
You
this.
think that this is the only story that did that before this?
I think it is. I think it might be the origin of it.
I know there was a Futurama clip that used the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
and I know I've seen it in a couple other things.
Does anybody else wish that Commodore Mendez was real? Because he ends up being an illusion as well, right?
No, I don't care.
He was an illusion all
I'm
the way
with Jeff
along.
on this one.
Well, that's what we find out at the end, right?
Oh, I never got quite to the end because I ran out of time, and I never saw that part. But
You saw it when it came out in 1960.
You've seen this before, right?
yeah, I have. I haven't seen it quite a few times, but I forgot about that part. But how did the Telosians do an illusion of him all the way back in Starbase with Kirk? Like, it's kind of like, how did they do that telepathy all across space?
How do they do that? Well, they're just a powerful, like, I don't know. It's just, it's not explained.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Star Trek reasons.
Yeah. Star Trek, yeah, I guess you can do whatever you want, but, I found that a little weak.
Right. Okay.
But
So
I like the character. I like those characters with the big heads, though.
yeah. So the original Commodore Mendez. Yeah, there was a real Commodore Mendez, but it's the Commodore Mendez that's on the ship and in the shuttle with Kirk.
Yeah.
Is not the real Commodore Mendez.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
So, like, the scenes in like the beginning with him are real, but everything in the trial, him and Kirk in the shuttle chasing the Enterprise, that's all. Kirk's doing it, but Mendez isn't really with him. It's an illusion.
Oh, I see.
Right, but at the end they go, Mendez goes, I've been watching the whole thing from my office, and I concur. It's all good. Spock is off the hook, and I think they actually say that they're going to lift the restrictions on Talos 4, at least temporarily.
Yeah, they said something like that.
Yeah, I don't. The reason I bring him up is I really like this actor in this episode. I think he serves really well. He's a Commodore. He's above Kirk, but he's not like super above Kirk. He's and especially because Spock's in trouble. It's not just up to Kirk whether or not Spock will be off the hook in this matter, right? And Spock seems quite willing to sort of like not only lose his career but also face the death penalty because they're going to the Forbidden Planet. Anyway.
Why does Spock do that? What's his motivation? Why does he risk his whole career?
Because he wants to help Pike, like,
Yeah.
live in his retirement years.
Right, but why?
Because it's better than living in a wheelchair.
So empathy.
Because we needed two episodes of this.
Right.
Right, but does that check out with Spock? Spock's logical. He doesn't care about motion.
Do you know what the Menagerie means?
No.
The Menagerie is the illusion, right?
Yeah, it's an illusion.
In French? In French?
Yeah, there's a movie, an old movie filmed in New Orleans, back in probably the 40s. It's called The Menagerie, and it's a film about New Orleans and Menagerie. So I'm sure it was a kind of a copy of that in a certain kind of way.
Yeah, like I think
you had to watch that movie to understand.
Okay.
Right. Like I don't know. I still look back at this fondly. I think it's one of the better season 1 episodes. I think considering that this was just a throwaway episode they used to fill in. It turns out really well. Now I think your mileage might vary on this if you like courtroom type TV episodes. Like if you're not a fan of that, I don't think you're gonna be a fan of this episode. But I think it's pretty interesting. I can't remember too many other court martials that are on screen like this in Star Trek. So it's I like that part of it, and I just like the whole world building aspect and Star Trek Discovery. I keep bringing it up because they tie into this stuff a ton. It's like if you like this episode, or you like this story, and if you want more of that, I guess you should watch that show. So
that explains why I don't like Discovery.
Oh, that's giving Discovery too much credit, Dave. I mean,
Right.
they just ripped off Captain Pike in Discovery. I mean, like, do we need to go back to that well? I don't really think so, but they thought so, and they were like, you need to get the Enterprise in this show called Star Trek Discovery, about a ship called Star Trek Discovery, the Discovery.
And they're like, well, Kirk's not even the captain of the Enterprise at the time. Well, who is? Well, Pike. And then they start unraveling that, and then you get what you get. But and now we're supposed to get a new show, Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is going to be Pike and Number One and Spock back around this time in these flashbacks that we're seeing in this episode.
Right.
And nobody's excited.
No.
2 seasons, that's what I give it.
As much as we goof on William Shatner, like Jody was alluding to earlier, he brings a gravitas to the character that,
Yes.
like, just like Avery Brooks does in DS9, Patrick Stewart certainly does as Picard in his own way.
Janeway?
And Janeway, yeah, Janeway was there.
Janeway was there. That's a good
Archer was there.
Archer was there. Kind of like this guy, just kind of like this Jeffrey Hunter that played Pike. I mean, he was there. He was like, he looks like Ray Liotta's dad. I mean, he looks like
they want to make another Goodfellas. That would have been a good pick.
I keep watching this episode and I keep thinking, what is this Charlie's Angels? I mean, like, you got Jeffrey Wright and he's just got the 3 girls that he's bringing around wherever he goes, and he's like, like, I just don't get it. Like, it's kind of silly. It's not quite Star Trek for me. It's like this alternate story, like you're saying. Like, it was kind of like a throwaway, but it comes out like good because they took time and care into this episode to blend everything. It feels like a movie. If you want, even the end credits are very much like a movie. So this could have been a movie. So I guess this is our original series movie that we didn't.
But if it had been a movie, I don't think anyone would like it.
No, that's why it's a TV show. Yeah, exactly, 100%. It does not hit the beats that a movie is supposed to hit, but it definitely accomplishes something. I don't know what, but it definitely something.
I've just had an infestation of squirrels. There was like 4 squirrels all looking at me at the same time.
We'll get them in here.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That might have been an illusion, Jody.
I was more entertained.
The
I can tell you right now.
Talosians, that's an illusion from the Talosians.
Oh man! By the time you get to the hour mark on these 2 episodes, you'd just rather be watching squirrels.
I don't know. I enjoy this. I really do. I think that this is.
In all honesty, it's a decent episode. But it's a reused episode. This is like a flashback episode on any modern sitcom or anything like that, where you're just getting into something and then they go back to this stupid shit.
Jody, this was when it all was created.
Is it better or worse?
Just because something was created, Ted, doesn't
all
make
those
it
other
better.
guys copied this.
Yeah, and they did it better.
Of course, because it's easier to do it better later. But,
Yeah, I mean, they copied it. They decided to get rid of Jeffrey Hunter right away. I mean, this is like the original idea for.
They didn't get rid of.
He died.
They didn't get.
Yeah.
First of all, they didn't get rid of him. He didn't want to come back after the first pilot. They asked him. He said no. That's why Shatner came in.
Right. He got killed.
And then he died in 1969 after an accident on a movie set.
Right, so he could have come back. I mean, so yeah, he left. All right, like you said.
He might have come back.
Man, he looks like Ray Liotta. It's crazy.
He's not like I think he's more wooden. I know. I can see him here on.
That's basically what I was saying. Is it's like looking at a log trying to tell me stuff. It's like, what's going on?
Look at him. Look at what she looks like. Ray Liotta.
He does look like Ray Liotta.
Looks just like him.
Come on, we must.
Ray Liotta looks like him. Is better, more like it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, I guess technically, yeah.
Well, Ray Liotta was adopted, so
He was
who
there
knows?
first. Maybe it's Ray Liotta's son.
Maybe.
Father.
Maybe that's it. Maybe
Maybe that guy-
Ray Liotta was the love child of this guy and somebody else.
Here, we may have exposed this.
We might actually be onto something here, guys.
Yeah, let's bring Jeff back.
Far
in.
more interesting than the episode.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any fun facts for this episode?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, well, let me pull it up. Keep talking about what you want to know.
Yeah, Dad, do you know what? So after they shot the original pilot, right, and they didn't pick it up, they asked him, Roddenberry, go back and do it again, right? Do you know what which is almost unheard of, by the way. Like that almost never happened at the time or ever since, because it's rare that they get.
Yeah.
That he got, like, it's Roddenberry, that he wasn't like a huge guy in TV yet at this point. Like this was kind of what made him. And and so do you know what the things were that the studio wanted changed, right, from the original pilot?
No.
So they thought that the original pilot was too cerebral, right? There's Telosians with the big brains. That was just like, they're like, no, we don't want that. We want more of like an action show. So part of the when they brought Shatner in to do Kirk, a big part of Shatner is he's always punching people, right? And
They also
and
had
he's
to use that theme music.
yes.
They already wrote the theme music. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, exactly.
You want some fun facts?
Imagine Pike doing that. Imagine Pike.
Oh, but just let me finish. I was just telling Dad what they asked him to change. The other thing was that in the original pilot, Pike's first officer is a woman, and the studio said,
"No, can't
you wouldn't have
a woman making decisions.
It was
Can't have
Michelle
a woman's
Barrett too, right?
yeah, second in command.
Woman telling other people what to do. I mean, what kind of a world are we living in? You can't have that in the 23rd
I'm
century."
still surprised they aren't smoking on the Enterprise.
Yeah, I know.
So, and that's what led because Majel Barrett, who plays number one, is then recast, I guess, as Nurse Chapel during the original series, and she goes on to play Luxana
Roddenberry
Troy.
had to keep her around. Like, let's be honest.
Well, she was his mistress, so
yeah,
and later his wife. So
yep.
It's okay. Jeff, fun facts.
Okay.
Fun facts with Jeff.
Fun facts with Jeff. All right. Welcome to another edition of Fun Facts with Jeff. Okay, so the original script.
Those glasses are a fun fact.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the original script was written by John D. F. Black, but Gene Roddenberry did not like it and rewrote it. Black filed a grievance with the Writers Guild over payment, but was denied. So I think I wrote this. Gene Roddenberry stole it. And then
rewrote
it. And rewrote it. And then took credit for it. And then, and then got called on it. And then did not receive any punishment.
He should have paid the other guy. If he didn't want to use the script, it's fine.
Just remember, stealing pays. Okay. According to James Doohan, Gene Roddenberry originally wanted to sell the failed pilot as a theatrical film. So pretty much what we were talking about. We were on the right track. However, it needed to be expanded with additional material to reach the feature length. Roddenberry planned to film the crash of the Columbia on Talos 4 because it didn't require Jeffrey Hunter, who was neither available or affordable to reprise his role as Captain Pike. However, plans for the feature release were soon abandoned.
Okay.
Jeffrey Hunter accepted the lead role of Captain Christopher Pike in The Cage, the first pilot episode of Star Trek, but declined to film a second Star Trek pilot, requested by NBC in 1965. He decided to concentrate on films. Footage from the original pilot was subsequently adapted into a 2-part episode called The Menagerie.
I'm not saying it's connected, but you could that decision not to come back to Star Trek. If he had made a different decision, his life might have been different.
He might not have been here talking about Star Trek.
He might not have died on a movie set in 1969.
Yeah,
you're probably right. So
not to say that what killed him. It's just kind of how things turned out, but.
Well, it's very much like Back to the Future. I mean, you go back in time, you change things. Then an alternate would have been an alternate 1969.
I don't think Jeffrey was a time traveler.
No. It's more the point of decisions change your path, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
he hasn't responded.
Okay, Robert H. Justman convinced Gene Roddenberry to write a 2-part episode utilizing the first pilot. What are you talking to, Dad?
Oh, I'm just talking to your mother.
Okay. And had to.
I had a sidebar.
Perfect for a podcast. Nothing better than a
Jody,
sidebar.
what did you think of that?
Oh, that's okay.
Woman?
You missed where he took a call.
Jody,
yeah, you missed that. He literally had a phone call on the air.
Yeah. What do you think of that green woman?
Which green woman?
Oh, the Orion slave girl?
The Orion slave girl,
Yeah.
What about her? She's pretty hot.
all right.
Is she hard for any man to resist?
I would imagine.
I mean,
Impossible if you go by the events of Star Trek Enterprise.
But I think we're probably still with the fun facts with Jeff segment.
well, yeah, we are. But he's
But hey, well,
he's doing the
Ryan.
sidebar.
It's a sidebar. Ryan Slave Girl. It becomes an iconic part of Star Trek because of this particular scene in this flashback. The Orion women. It's huge in Star Trek. It's almost synonymous, like with the lore. And so, yeah, that's that. I hadn't even really thought about that much, but yeah, you're right to point that out.
So the Telosian Keeper alien was actually played by a woman, Meg Wiley. We were all Telosians. The telepathic voice is alleged to have been dubbed by Malachi Thorne, who coincidentally played Commodore Jose Mendez in the Menagerie.
Wait, are you saying that the voice of the Telosians is the same guy as Commodore Mendez?
That's exactly what I am.
That's exactly what he just said.
That's
How
a fun
can that
fact
be?
that's a fun fact with Jeff.
But back with
man.
Jeff.
Fun fact with Jeff.
I need a sound.
The
for that.
original
I
broadcast.
think that fun fact's a little dubious.
What?
Shots fired.
I don't get it. I mean, what do you mean by dubious?
Well, I mean, how many people they have on a Star Trek show? They had to use the same guy twice. What's that all about?
James Doohan did like every voice for every freaking thing
I
that
think-
they did.
I think your father's giving you shit on air. I think that's what he's doing.
I don't think he likes fun facts with Jeff. We got to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
answer.
Fun facts with Jeff is
Turned it into a shooting post here.
Your mother has a big question tonight on Fun Facts for Jeff. He wants to know, in the Star Trek song at the beginning of the episode, is that Nichelle Nichols doing the singing?
No.
I don't think so.
She's quite a singer.
I don't know.
Apparently she's quite a
singer.
singer. and
She's
that
one going.
sounds like-
Oh,
Yeah,
that's,
that. Yeah,
that's not
that?
Nichelle Nichols.
I had to be-
No.
yeah.
No.
Apparently it might be. It might be according to your mother.
Can we get a fact check on that, Jeff? Can we get a fact check?
I'm checking right now.
I don't even know how to look that up.
Apparently she did it anonymously back in '68.
But that's after the show came out.
I know. Yeah, she did it. They back timed it with a time warp.
No, this is falling
nope.
apart.
The woman who sang is actually Louis Jean Norman Louis.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Nichelle Nichols sings in other things, but
Was a soprano who sang the wordless accompaniment to the theme music for Star Trek: The Original Series.
Oh.
Louis Jean Normand was her name.
It's by a white woman. Like they weren't gonna, it wasn't
She had
gonna
a
be a
whole
black
page
woman.
on
I'm surprised
Memory Alpha.
Nichelle Nichols even got on that show. I mean, considering the time
Star
period.
Trek music. You
Oh.
gotta love Star
Oh,
Trek.
here you go. Her voice was also heard in the eerie music that accompanied the Telosian's illusion in the cage.
Oh, so she's also in this episode. So she's
also in this episode
it
twice.
works right back. That's a fun fact with Jody.
All right, well, whoa, hold on.
Fun
I don't
facts
want that.
with
Jody and the Squirrels.
Jeff is the fun
Jody
fact
and
guy,
the
not me.
Squirrels.
Jody and the Squirrels.
There are too
It's a
many
new
facts.
band that's coming out.
It's a
and
new
they're gonna
band.
play in the next episode that we're going to review. Jody and the Squirrels will be in the next episode we will review.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Oh,
space
man.
hippies. Space
That's how
hippies
boring this
going to
episode-
Eden.
That's how.
They're
Oh,
going
we're not
to
watching the
eat-
Space Hippies one, are we?
Oh, yeah.
Come on, we gotta watch the
gotta-
Space Hippies. I've been living
Oh,
for
yeah.
that.
Even Stone, that's not a fun episode.
Oh,
So
it's gonna be
I
great.
didn't quite realize this, but maybe you did, Dave, or maybe you did, Dad. But pretty much this entire episode is they literally took scenes and splices from other episodes. Like, for instance, when like Kirk talked on the PA at like 18 minutes or whatever, they cut to like four guys that like stopped to like listen to the PA. They literally took that from another episode. I think maybe one of the episodes we watched. I think it was the Corbinite.
This is truly a regurgitation episode.
Yeah, like it's
Every
you know,
way
it's,
imaginable.
but it turned out
They
pretty
probably
well.
shot
Okay.
about 6 minutes worth of actual footage for this.
Jody, how would you compare this to the episode of The Next Generation, where during the writer's strike, I don't know if you remember this in season
the
2,
Riker episode?
the Riker clip show
Oh,
episode.
That was a terrible episode.
That's
This
got to
is
be
much-
worse than this. Is
this
much
is
better.
much-
than that.
You know what? I'm not a fan of clip shows to begin with, unless you have a legacy to do so. 10 episode in is not a legacy to do a clip show. So same thing with Next Gen. Next Gen was only what, I think
Season
18
2.
episodes in. Well, no, then it was season 2, so it would have been, let's say, 25 maybe. Clip shows are lazy.
All right,
Yeah,
so
well,
That's what it comes down to.
Right.
listen to this one. There have been many reasons given for Jeffrey Hunter not continuing as Captain Pike. The one that rings most true is from Shatner's book, where he relates that Hunter's wife was a constant irritant to the production staff, with never-ending demands for how Hunter was to be handled and treated. Other books say his wife came to a screening pitch for the pilot and declared he wasn't interested because he was a movie star. It seems likely the second story is a cover for the first, and the first is the closest to the truth. Roddenberry decided he wanted to be rid of Hunter and his wife and their demands, and so he never actually offered him a contract to continue. So
He was like, remember Cody Rasmus who played for the Blue Jays? It was kind of the same thing.
it's
Remember they had
the
his
exact same
father
thing.
was a pain in the ass, so they got rid of him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, sort
Same
of. Like,
idea.
Well,
LeVar Ball.
I think we need to.
LeVar Ball. Same thing.
We need to thank his wife, because if it wasn't for his wife, Shatner probably wouldn't have been Kirk.
yeah.
Remember LeVar Ball and whatever's the Balls guy's name who played for the Lakers.
So
Same thing.
thank you to Jeffrey Hunter's entitled wife. Because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have had Shatner, and then we wouldn't have gotten great moments like, they killed my boy, and
you son of a bitch.
you son of a bitch, and everything.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hunter was never going to do a good
anymore.
Jeffrey Hunter could never do Khan.
No, and
Jeffrey-
I don't see him doing double dumbass on you.
Double dumbass on you.
We only got to know 60s Jeffrey Hunter. We don't know what he would have been like later. Does everyone feel comfortable? They feel like they're ready to maybe make their rating on this episode?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Share screen. And let's get this in here. And
I'm shooting outside, so there's like random noises happening. So I apologize for that.
all right, everybody. So let's talk the Menagerie. So this, as mentioned earlier, this has an 8.4 on the Internet Movie Database, IMDb. So it's one of the highest rated. Actually, it is the highest rated of anything we've watched so far. Now, that's what the audience thinks. We're not bound to such things. We are going to give this
Nor will I
episode
be.
a fair shake. Jody, we'll start with you. How about where are you going to put this?
Start with me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this. It's a solid episode, even though it's a regurgitated episode. I'm gonna go with let's do a 7.
Okay, pretty decent. Okay, Dad, do you have yours?
Oh, I have to give this a 9. Just solid. 9 all the way.
A 9. Do you like this as much as the Corbomite maneuver?
Oh yeah.
He is
Yeah, it's
only
right
rated.
there. Maneuver, but twice the fun.
Your dad can only rate above 5 anyway. We already know this.
He's never rated below. Only one episode below 7.
Yeah.
We can.
And that was Omega Glory, which, let's be
This
honest,
is the worst.
he was being nice.
Jeff, how do you feel about this episode?
I think it's. I agree with Jody. My first feeling was 7, so that was what I'll give
It's
it.
a solid episode. Like, it's not a terrible episode.
I'm willing to go sort of with the main the thing and go around an 8. I think it's worth an 8. So yeah, actually, you know what? I'm going up to 8.5. What the hell? So all right, so that averages us out at 7.9, and in comparison to everything else we've watched so far, pretty good. That's pretty high. That's not as good as Return to Tomorrow, which has our highest rating of all. So, and we're moving on to next week, The Way of Eden, which colloquially
Can I put in my score now for that one?
No, let's wait for that
Terrible
one. Now,
episode.
it has a 5.5 on IMDb, which is the lowest of anything we've watched on Star Trek. That
You gave that a 5.5?
a 5.5. Okay, but
Ted, are you working for IMDb?
No, what they do, I think, is like what did the is this a Star Trek part of the Star Trek series? It automatically gets like a 4 right there, and then so it's really a 1.5 probably.
yeah, but the Omega Glory, that bad episode, has a 6.2. So the audience thinks that the Omega Glory is better than
Right.
The Way to
Yeah,
Eden.
there's something wrong with the world.
Okay, well, we're going to be the judge next
We
week.
have a very small sample for us.
Inside that, and give me here.
There's
Okay,
too
so
many Ted Maters in this world, I guess.
There's a small sample size.
Small sample size.
We're not as critical. We look at this without the shaded and biased of future episodes of today's Star Trek.
Because
I look at this.
we've actually watched those episodes.
I haven't
I can
seen
barely-
them,
I can-
so I'm not skewed and swayed to go to your
Ted,
communist
I can
ways.
barely see your eyes through your rose-colored glasses. All right.
I mean,
Listen,
if you never,
listen,
you know,
I'm
if you
a
never watched the
Tris. I
movie,
watch it for what it is. Not
if you
what
never
it
watched
could
a
be.
movie after like 1935, you'd think Gone with the Wind was the best movie too. But I
I
like,
don't think it was second best. I think the Menagerie was number one. In
Gone with the Wind is 1939.
oh right, 1939. Sorry.
I'm just-
Yeah, like you would think that was the greatest movie of all time, but I
Oh,
mean,
banned now.
I only know that because there was a question on Jeopardy the other night. What was the film premiere that Martin Luther King Jr. sang in a choir for at the premiere? And it was
oh, really?
Gone with the Wind. So
No kidding.
Now-
So
now it's
ironic.
okay with 2 races.
That was not as fun facts with Dave Mater.
Yeah,
that
that's
was not as fun. Not as
depressing
fun. That was more-
facts with Dave.
Yeah, depressing.
Kind of depressing facts with Dave Mater.
Kind of depressing facts.
Just
with Dave
something I
Mater.
saw on Jeopardy. With Dave Mater.
I'm not, you know,
That was now something I saw on Jeopardy, but Dave Mater.
Star
What am I
Trek for
brain-
200.
through Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's now I now need to deliver it to you. So now you have this piece of information that's depressing.
Yes. All right. So I'm excited for next week in particular here on Live Long and Podcast
I
because
am not.
it is going to be a tough week, guys. Next week here on Live Long and Podcast,
The music
on-
next week will be fantastic.
yeah, next week on here on Live Long and Podcast on Tuesday night we're going to be doing Deep Space Nine, which is, we're watching. I can't remember the episode offhand, but it is the worst episode.
One way to go, Adamarain, and for more.
Oh, that one is
We're doing-
terrible.
It is. It's considered to be the worst
Oh,
Deep
that's
Space Nine
gonna be a bad
episode.
week, eh?
So we have
Oh,
the worst.
it is.
Do I
We have
come
the-
on?
Maybe one of the worst Star Trek.
Maybe you should come on for that
Yeah,
one.
come on
because-
and just rip it.
Oh, I don't know if I can handle that. You got Jaemeel.
Yeah,
don't you?
get it along.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Okay, on
Jameel will
Thursday-
find the good in that episode.
He will.
we will
yes,
be
for sure.
we'll be back here on Thursday next week in our regular time slot to talk about The Way to Eden, possibly one of the worst original series episodes. And on next Saturday we'll be talking about Star Trek Into Darkness, my least favorite Star Trek movie probably. So
No, we're
with
doing-
but this Saturday we are doing Star Trek
Oh, okay.
2009, the original Chris Pine
Like, I watched
movie.
the wrong movie.
You
No,
should have let me.
I was just thinking about the schedule next week and realizing it's really
Ted's gone. Ted's like, I'm done.
yeah. Well, he just
He's like, I got a phone call. I got
he's got phone calls,
I
bathroom
do
breaks.
dishes.
He's probably calling his Star Trek support group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, you know they're crapping on original series. You know, I don't think their shows are very good. You know,
Hey!
He had a
Beth.
call.
he had a
Hello,
call.
Beth.
I tell you, he
Well-
did have a phone call. I was right.
You know what, Beth? You just instantly upgraded this podcast.
I try.
You don't have to
What-
try hard,
there
dear.
we go. What's that?
I said you don't have to try hard, dear.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think you guys are doing amazing getting him to do this because he usually doesn't participate in such functions.
Well,
So-
he doesn't really participate in this all that much either.
Oh no, he's
You know,
very
he comes and goes. You know,
He's in and out.
I think Dad comes to each episode with like 2 notes he wants to talk about. Like, what do you think of that weird alien thing? And what did you?
yeah, what do you think of that green woman?
And then I think after he talks about those 2 things, he's done. But
I've
like,
never been on a podcast. I've been on many podcasts, and I've never been on a podcast where somebody takes a phone call.
Well, I'll give you a little tip. Because tonight he said, "Oh, I'm going to get Jody good. Oh, I'm going to
Ow.
get Jody good tonight." Because he likes toting Kirk as the best captain ever. He goes, "Oh, that'll get Jody."
I like
all
Kirk.
right."
I like Kirk. He's not the best
Okay.
captain ever, but I like him.
The best of all time?
What do you mean? Like at best at what? They're all
like
good.
the best among the captains.
Better than Picard or Janeway or any of
Who would
that.
I
Definitely
rather-
better than Janeway.
Who would I want to be my captain? Like that's a totally different question too. Like I certainly
know.
wouldn't want it to be Picard.
I think
kind of like
who's the bigger
He's got-
hero? Who's better at their job?
Who's
I
the best
guess.
hero of all the captains?
Yeah.
Probably Janeway, if she's the one
Oh,
in the
Janeway did nothing.
dire straits. I mean, she's kind
Janeway
of
barely did anything.
They're
All she
trying to
did was
survive.
run away from the Borg all the time.
well, that was later, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'd probably want Cisco to be my captain. I mean, he seems the most chill. I mean,
Well, he's a commander. He's not even a captain.
right.
Ugh.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, Mom, you can sign off for Dad, I suppose. He's taking 2 phone calls
sign off
in
for
this.
Dad.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure
Yeah, he's got
seeing
a
you
few
again,
issues
Beth.
going on.
Make sure to
Yeah.
subscribe, everybody. Tell all your friends, subscribe, and join us back here on Saturday. We're going to be talking about Star Trek 2009. So we'll see you then. Okay. Well, until then, for everyone here, live long and podcast and long life. Have a good one, and thanks. Oh, and Mom's just gone. All right.
There
Well,
she's gone.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm done.
All right. Well, if she's done, we're done. Okay.
That's the sign up. That's my cue.